You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
To the chasers of light, to the purveyors of pictures, all of you listening, this is the F11 Photography Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Deal, along with your other host, Brandon Gorrie. And that is his laugh, if you're wondering.
It is I!
And we are joined in studio today by Raphael Umscheid.
Correct. You get extra points for that.
That could have gone both ways. It could have been Umscheid, but
And I would have said that was right.
That's problematic.
I'm very relativistic.
You know, it's kind of funny. I've known Raphael at some capacity, at least for a couple of years now, and I've never actually said his last name verbally. I've always just typed it out. But is it German?
Correct.
See, if my parents are listening, I took 2 years of German in college, and it fucking paid off. So,
I mean, that sounded Chinese to me, so I don't really got that right.
I don't want to use a sound effect twice, but
yes.
Our sponsor for today's episode is Dehancer. Is the price of film kicking you in the balls? We have 3 film photographers today, so I guarantee you we're going to talk about that at some point. But if the price of film is kicking you in the balls and you just can't afford it anymore and you're at the end of your rope, you can go get Dehancer because Dehancer is about the price of 3 boxes of 120 film now. And it's really cool. It has 30 years of combined experience, not only emulating the color of film, but doing something that most film emulations do poorly, and that is emulating the actual physics of light hitting an emulsion and creating cool things like halation, bloom, and all that. And so Brandon and I have both done reviews of Dehancer on our YouTube channels. Brandon, what do you think about it?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that if you are at the end of your rope, please seek help. But in terms of my thoughts on Dehancer, I thought it was a very comprehensive software for not only emulating film stocks, which you know and love, especially those that are going extinct, like Fuji Pro 400H and Fuji Natura, which I'm actually not sure if Natura was on there. I don't think I saw it on there, but you can emulate it if you really wanted to, because Dehancer has such a complex system for bringing film to life in all of its physical aspects, from the bloom, the halation, the film grain, and even high definition shadow and contrast renderings that mimic the pushing of film in a very proprietary manner. It will not look like regular contrast. It will look like the pushing of film.
Exactly. And you can also emulate cool things like paper type, because it's not just about your film emulation, it's about your print emulation. The art of print is just as important as the art of film. So if that sounds cool to you, we do have a link in the description below where you can get 10% off Dehancer. But enough about the sponsors. We have not done an interview in a while on this show, mainly because I haven't been around and we haven't had a show because I've been traveling for work. So we have in studio Raphael Umscheid. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, Raphael is a badass photographer based here in Austin, and we're going to talk to him about a myriad of topics, starting with what got you into photography.
A mistake. So, yeah, seriously, I was always a visual person since I was a kid, drawing dinosaurs and sharks and whales all the time. And then I was into painting, and then I moved to Austin and was sort of in a band with my friend that now lives in Portland, Eric Jordan. I'll give you his last name in case he's listening. And he was into film. And I said, What are you doing? And then I got a little point and shoot, started playing around with it, went to Switzerland. It failed when I was there. So I bought another camera at the tourist store and was hooked. So kept going from there.
Awesome. Now you also paint, right?
Correct.
So did you start painting? You started painting first, and then you did photography after that.
Yeah, exactly. So I was always into, just drawing and painting first.
And do you find that the two work harmoniously together? Like you can really draw from the artistic vibes you get when you paint, and then apply that to your photography?
Yeah, it's not always perfect. Like I'll think I have this idea and it doesn't translate to one medium or the other, but in my mind, because I don't have very good, strong limits to how I think, things just bleed and merge. So I'm like really letting things happen and going back and forth, and really more and more, I'm just really not trying to have a limit between either one. I think of them all as visual ultimately.
Now that whole coexistence of painting and photography, do you find that sometimes if you're in a rut on one medium, you just find yourself gravitate toward the other to try to find inspiration to get yourself back in on like for instance, if you're like, man, my painting is shit right now, I'm not feeling it, I'm gonna go shoot some fucking film right now and then feel myself, and then I'll go back and paint. Does that work for you sometimes?
Yeah, and it's also the speed of the medium. Like with the painting, you can be really stuck, and you can really be like, I don't want to touch this thing for a month or something like that. And sometimes you have to because of drying time and those things. So going out and just getting something done with, taking photos feels faster. And you go out, you have a nice day in the sun, come back and look at it on the computer, and then you're hunched over again. And then you do your Pilates and you're back, and then you do some painting. And then it's not just the painting, it's other things too. I mean, I think all of life are the breaks you can take, like between playing music or hanging out with friends. It's all feeding in, I feel, different mediums, video game playing.
Yeah, and to paint a picture, I just want to say that getting into photography, and especially in the Austin area, you were one of the first photographers I followed, and I was always extremely inspired by the way that you captured form, and not only captured the essence of the female form, but also tied that into an abstract expression of shape and color itself. And I've found that very few people do that better than you. And so I wanted to ask, as it's been years since I've been aware of your work and an admirer of your work, is how has your work evolved in your own mind? Was there any deliberation or intention with this, or has it been just an ongoing exploration since when you've started?
I think it's both, if that makes any sense. There will be like moments of a push to go a certain direction, and then there'll be moments where I'm just checked out and I let things happen. And I think for me, just being open to exploration is always great, to put me in another place, or I'll try something new. And then that goes back to the intentions that I had. Or maybe I abandoned some of the original intentions that maybe they were bad ideas. I feel like I like to let ideas die if they need to. Or I just throw all these ideas in a sketchbook, come back to them, and if they're great, then I want to keep pursuing them. So it's a little of both.
Would you find that the end justifies the means and the journey of your project, or would you say it is the journey and the process that justifies the end?
It's the journey and process for me. Like, if I think we might touch on AI maybe, but
you missed that episode. We recorded that earlier today. We're happy to keep talking about it because it's a hot topic that people listen to. So feel free, talk about AI.
Yeah, I mean, for me, AI can, even if it, which it will be better than us, I'm still going to be doing what I do.
Well, would you see yourself incorporating AI to not necessarily better, but enhance or explore a more creative avenue? Like, is there a way that you could see AI enhancing your vision and not detracting from it?
I think it's possible. I haven't gotten there yet. I did try. I went on a shark trip recently. My childhood fantasy to swim with sharks, and no shark showed up. So the captain had taken a photo of me at sea, and I tried to fill it with sharks, but they looked like crap. But,
I'm gonna do my best. I'm going scuba diving. As a matter of fact, as soon as this interview is done, I am going to the Apple Store to get a dive watch, and I'm going diving for a week among hopefully some sharks. Maybe I'll get more. I'll be more fortunate than you.
yeah, where at?
We're going to go to the Keys.
Okay.
So we're going to the Keys for a week. We're going to do some daytime dives, and then we're going to do a nighttime dive and all that. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun. But I got certified for it and everything, and I'm excited to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So hopefully they don't bite me. I don't have any chum.
Yeah, don't touch me because I'll give you bad luck.
Okay, we'll stay. He's about 2 feet from me.
Show up.
He's actually more like 1.5 feet away from me, so I'm going to give him a space. But anyway, you tried artificial intelligence. You tried to put some sharks in. It didn't quite work out.
Yeah, they looked like crap. So,
Was it the lighting was hitting them wrong or what?
Oh, they just looked like fake sharks that were superimposed on the sea. I didn't try very hard, honestly, but I know that technology is going to evolve, and you will be able to make a shark-filled sea in the future. But I haven't gotten there as far as incorporating in my own work. But I mean, I do see the potential. But even if it can do all the work for me, I'll probably still want to do things the hard way because I just get a lot of satisfaction out of.
I'm in these Facebook groups online because as everybody in this room knows, I'm big in the gear, and so to stay on top of a lot of gear, I tend to be in groups. They're like, oh, this is a Hasselblad group, and this is a Canon group, and so I just like to stay on top of things. But every week, it seems like in one of those groups, some person has some existential crisis out in the open, like, oh my God, AI is going to take my job. I'm like, well, maybe if you're a fucking headshot photographer, it will, because it's so technical and not creative. But, at the end of the day, nothing is stopping you from going out and getting a Mamiya 645, getting some Portra 400 and just shooting and not giving a fuck what AI does and just go out and take good pictures. I mean, and that's kind of the thing is it's like, you can, you don't have to worry about what else is going on. You can just be like, there's this guy, I know Stefan, he's this Swiss guy I met during the pandemic. He lives in Australia now. He's a photographer, but he had this really like good outlook, which is like, hey, you think about that guy who started painting in caves, some caveman who's painting in caves, just enjoying his life, not giving a fuck about anything else. You can be that guy. Nothing is stopping you from being that guy. You can just go take pictures to make yourself happy and not care what other people think, not care what AI is doing while you're doing your thing. You can just go do your thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last time I was painting in a tent, in a cave, I had the security come grab me and tell me that I need to go back to my tent at the festival. Yeah, I was in like those cliff dwellings in Colorado, like drawing boobies on things. I got arrested. I'm just kidding. I didn't do that. We wouldn't put it past
I can
you.
do that.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I don't know if you've seen the new generative fill. We just did a whole episode on it, but I can literally like look at your shirt, draw a lasso. He's wearing a striped shirt. Draw a lasso around your shirt, and I can put you into the Freddie Mercury wife beater if I want. I can with the leather jacket. Like I can do whatever I want.
Yes, I want that.
So what we're gonna do before we leave is I'm gonna take a portrait of Raphael in that shirt before he leaves, and I am gonna do generative fill AI in a Freddie Mercury jacket for his picture for this episode. I've called it now, which means that before he leaves, I have to take a portrait real quick.
The real question I have is, can generative AI replace chest hair? Can it enhance chest hair? Can it take it away?
It's interesting you bring that up because I tried it out and like yes, it can.
Okay.
Mine's turning gray, so
It's good.
Get to that point.
It's aged.
Yes.
The quality is there we are.
I have fine aged chest hair. But, getting older, there are some cool things, though, about getting older. Like when I was young, and I've had these conversations with Brandon on this show, when you're younger, you're more competitive and you're always like, you see some photographer doing something, you're like, I'm going to one up it. I find that as I get older, I start celebrating other people's victories more and I'm happy for them. So like, for those of you listening, like there's a small community of models in Austin, And there's a lot of models that the three of us in this room have worked with. And so sometimes you'll see somebody work with a model and they'll take what you think is a better shot than you've ever taken with that model. And instead of going, fucker, you're like, dude, I'm happy. Like I've seen Raphael take shots of models I've worked with before. I'm like, that's a fucking cool shot. I wish I took it, but I'm happy for him, as opposed to being like, fuck that guy. You know, like when I was younger, it might be a little bit more like, you know.
I'll tell you one thing. Is something I preach on this show is that part of being a photographer and part of being a skillful photographer is selecting the model you work with. And I've noticed in your work, Raphael, that it's a lot of your work, there never seems to be a lack of intention with the model you decide to work with for the project. You never seem to work with a model who just didn't quite get what you needed in terms of the work, because your work is it's multidisciplinary in a lot of ways. And so not having the right model can impact the other media in your artwork. So I just wanted to ask, what is there a process for who you work with, or how do you go about making that very important selection?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm looking for a degree of belief in what I do from the model, so it's a reciprocal appreciation of each other's work. And I think to my detriment, for a while, I was really closing walls off of late. I'm just going to go on a sidebar. So I'm really expanding who I'm talking to lately, but I had people that I felt safe with, and that we did good work, and that felt really good, comforting. So I'm trying to get a little out of my comfort zone again, which I started that way, but I just somehow got, I think after the pandemic, I got a little bit walled up and like, okay, I have these 5 people that are great, and I just want to stick with them and build. And I've worked with some of these people for a decade now, so that is pretty incredible relationship. But yeah, it's like they know, I know. There's no question what we're going to do. Even if we decide to go AWOL and do something experimental and crazy, which I'm always a fan of doing that. I like to just stay loose and see what happens.
So you say that you probably agree that the compatible nature of your relationship with these models leaves you so much space to expand creatively when you don't have to worry about their ability to not only work with you, but synthesize with you something new, something creative, and something that might push the bounds of your work.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so it's a challenge, with a newer person, or if they have more commercial goals, it's a challenge. So,
Yes.
That's,
yeah.
Well, I'm like you. I tend, especially after the pandemic, you're like, hey, first of all, I don't want to get sick. So I'm going to very limit who I work with. But I tend to work with the same models, and I'll touch upon this on this show. And the reason I work with them is I heard Maynard James Keenan of Tool say this, and I was like, that's literally me to a core, which is because he's in all these different bands. And it's like, why are you in this band and why are you in that band? It's because I have these different conversations I need to have, and I need to have them with different people. And I can go leave this project and go to this other project, and then I go back to that old project, and we're continuing a conversation. We may have changed the subject because it's a new album, but we're changing the conversation. It's the same conversation, changing the subject with the same person. We continue where we left off. And I feel that way with models. When I work with a model for the first time, I tend to not do something super crazy and elaborate because they may fold, they may suck, they may not be compatible. I mean, another thing we talked about, I see, Brandon shoot with some models better than I do. And my conclusion is, well, he's just more compatible with that model than I'm. Cool. And there's probably some models that I have shoots where Brandon's like, Kevin's probably same with you. But I tend to use the same models because it's like, hey, I don't have to get to know you as a photographer model relationship anymore. I just have this fucking crazy idea. Let's go execute it. And then we just go and hit the ground running. Is it kind of the same in your world?
Yeah, exactly. We'll work on shoots. Sometimes it would be a span of 2 years between shoots, but it's always there. Usually, and many of the models I work with, they don't work very often. They're not doing very active, really. So I'm kind of the guy that works with them, and we do something. They do something once or twice a year, and I know you've worked with Anya. She doesn't
Oh.
You've worked with Anya.
I have worked with Anya.
Yeah.
Working with her, I know she's always very open to shoot. I know she doesn't model very much anymore because she's got her fantastic holistic midwife thing going on, which is awesome. I love her message, especially when it's in Russian, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But the times that I have worked with her, it has been like a breath of fresh air. I'm a very abstract guy. When I give directions, I try not to give technical directions because when models get technical directions, they don't fill the rest of the void. When you tell them to move their arm, they don't fit the whole posture of what it means to move their arm. They just go, oh, my arm is moved. That should be it. Anya, you can tell her to occupy a space in an emotional, in a characteristic capacity, and she will go and do that in a very natural, intentional way. And it leaves you as a photographer so much space, so much just nice empty space where you can just figure out the rest without having to worry about Anya. And she brings so much to the table in that way. I'm absolutely not surprised that you work with her so often and as often as you do, because as a multidisciplinary artist, you need that space. It's very important for you.
I mean, and I worked with her on a dance project. I was going to do a dance film, just totally off the wall. I'm not a choreographer. I can't dance, but I was like,
taking one look at you, I believe it.
Yeah, exactly. I can do some funny dances.
On the subjects of picking models, because we had a models episode where we just talked about models, and then we've had models come in here. And I always like getting new photographers' perspective on this. What do you look for when you're like, I want to work with her? Because like my thing is I just like look at a few pictures and I can't put it into words, which is why I take pictures. I'm just like, I know I want to work with you, and I just gotta not sound creepy when I approach you about it. But like, what criteria? What are you looking for in a model when you have a project in mind?
Yeah, I should have some deep answer. The soul. I mean, it's more than a veneer. I mean, I think people that are more interesting, there's something deeper, which is always what I'm hoping to achieve, something that's not just a quote unquote shoot with a concept, which I'm not really into. That terminology kind of bothers me. Like, I don't shoot concepts, random concepts. I'm working on something here. If you've seen my linear progress on certain things, not everyone has, my Instagram's confusing, so I get it.
Well, that's because on Instagram you have to like cater your work toward a crop that they're asking for and all that. It's not a place to thrive 100% as an artist unless you just happen to shoot in a square.
Right. So yeah, someone that is a little more than just wanting to take pictures and more than a pretty face. I'm not into taking pretty pictures. I had someone tell me it was my job as a photographer to make a model, flatter a model, and I push back on that every time I can because I'm like, no. I mean, that there are some great photographers that do, but not me.
Well, I have a lot of, I think that a lot of models, especially women, are confused about what it means to be a good model. They put so much emphasis on looks. It's like some of the most awesome pictures I've seen are taken of some pretty odd looking people. Yeah. Like there's odd beauty, like someone like, I don't know, Tilda Swinton or somebody like that. She's oddly beautiful, right? Yes. And like so, to shoot with her. Yeah. I'd love to shoot with her. But they have this checklist in their head where they're like, oh yeah, well I'm pretty. It's like, I don't care. Like how well do you know your body in front of a camera? First of all, how much instruction do I need to give you? Because if I'm a ventriloquist and I'm shaping you, as we've discussed in this podcast, I'm taking my mental bandwidth away from framing, composition, and things that I'm trying to work through as an artist. And I'm basically, for whatever reason, you don't know how to model and you need me to model you. I should only give you micro adjustments, things that you can't see because you're not looking through the camera. Like just, you nailed it. Move your hand up just a little bit. There we go. Like that's it. Yeah. That's how much coaching I feel like I should give a model.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all in the same camp of not over coaching because I think that leaves just staleness, and I like to let people have their part of the project. Maybe in the end, sometimes it'll be, I really have this is mine and I really want to make it a certain thing, but I still want to have that openness always to everyone involved to make it feel as a whole. And when we finish, I'm open to what they can do. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to do something better than what I thought. And I love that. So that feels really good when someone just blows me away. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm a witness, just clicking the button, like, oh man, this emotion, like this one actress was making me about to tear up, and I'm like watching this performance.
You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
As someone who has friends and follows the model scene in Europe relatively closely, more so than in the US, it seems to me like that quality that we look for in models is just innate in Europe. That liquid form of models just being comfortable in their bodies, being comfortable just taking the form of a Renaissance painting, taking the form of everyday life, living slowly and not overly stimulated on abstract anxieties and things bombarding them in their minds. I feel like here in the US, it's harder to find those models. What we expect here is the commercial veneer of hyper posing and hyper looks, and everything has to be a statement. There's no art form of subtlety in the model culture in the US. It's very difficult to find. Whereas I look at the amateur photo shoots in Europe, and this girl who doesn't have any experience in modeling often, because I look through the models, I look through the photographers, I look through everyone. And more often than not, these photos that are getting featured are featuring women who aren't even professional models. They're just so comfortable in the everyday life that they can just be and exact their own state of necessity so well in front of cameras in a way that people in the US just can't. Here, it's like a job. People treat it like, okay, I'm turning on my model. It's like, you just got to know how to be in that way.
We're a very commercial oriented society, and it's, I'm like, I mean, that's half the reason why Instagram is such a nightmare. Like the Bang energy drink and all that. I mean, I'm like, I don't want to be part of that world. So it's just.
Well, Austin is a commercial market on top of that. Like we have fashion divisions of some modeling agencies here, but they're also like, if you go to the modeling agencies in Austin, they'll have a fashion division, but all those models are also in their commercial division because that's where they go to make money. And, I think a lot of it has to do with the connection to the photographer. So I'm always drawn to the work of Peter Lindbergh because Peter Lindbergh could take somebody like Cindy Crawford, who's a supermodel, and just like, no, I'm going to strip you down to like the most basic form of yourself. Put on a white T-shirt and let's go out on a beach. And I'm going to get some of the most honest photos I've ever gotten, which is some T-Mac, or he was a 400 TX guy, but he just go out there with a Hasselblad or something and just like get some of the most honest photos of some of these models that you're used to seeing, like superposed and in all this commercial US vibe. He just find a way to pull that out of them. And that's always been the draw to me. Is it's like, that's a reputation I've always wanted to get, is a lot of these commercial models who come to me for creative projects because they're so used to being posed all the time. Like, I just want to go do something out in the streets and like do some honest stuff. It's like, yes, that's that guy I want to be. I want to be that guy, like that Peter Lindbergh vibe. Let's go roll with that. And so, but to your point, I was just talking about like, I think a lot of it has to do with the connection with the photographer, but shifting gears to ideas and all that, are you a big mood boarder? How do you communicate what you're trying to accomplish with a model?
Yeah, I'm a little odd, I think, because I'm not into mood boards for the most part, and I kind of don't want to use them, but I will eventually use them sometimes to be helpful. My favorite thing to do is sketch, and so I'll sketch ideas and send them. So a lot of models just think it's funny because I'll send them these ridiculous drawings, like with backs that have no vertebrae, basically, and like I want this. so they love it. Some of them, I think, the ones that don't love it don't tell me.
But I like the fact that you sketch, because I have models approach me about doing shoots, and when they put mood boards together, because we live in this digital algorithmic world, they all go to Pinterest and they all type in the same like basic terms like model sitting in studio or something. And when they like, I'm not kidding. Like when I have this conversation with models and they send me a Pinterest board, it's the same 7 poses that the last model sent me. And I'm like, shit. But if you can sketch something from scratch and you send them an idea, that's your original. You're not copying anything. So I think there's something to that. And, you know, we're talking about it. We're talking about an episode where we talked about AI. You know, something that I use. I just bought a new iPad recently, and I'm not an artist. I'm not a sketcher, but I can sketch something up. And I sketched up an idea that was based off of something I saw in AI about this couture dress thing that I want to do with projection and all that. I sent it off to a designer, and he flipped out, thought it was amazing. I don't know. Maybe people take it more seriously if you send it to them as a drawing. You know?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think some people want to see like a whole setup from a reference photo and a mood board, and that makes them comfortable. And I understand that. So I don't mean to be elitist, but I love to make a sketch because then it's like this open thing that I can shape and make the light how I want, but it's loose, and I don't feel like the model, you know, they can't approximate the lines I've made that are squiggly. So if they can squint and kind of see where I'm going with a variety of sketches, I feel like it keeps them looser. So it's going back to the posing idea. Like, cause I always tell them, I'm not drawing this so you'll pose like this. So
I can just because of the way you describe your relationship with the models, I can see you setting them like a Jackson Pollock and just being like, I want this from you. And they could be like, I understand. Like that's the relationship you have where it's very abstract. It's very flowy. And that mutual understanding is incredibly rare, but also incredibly powerful in creating work. But something I wanted to ask you as well is when it comes to film, what is your approach to film these days? The film has changed a lot in the last 5-10 years. And I know that you have shot film and that you do shoot film. You have a Mamiya 645, if I remember correctly. What are your views on the rise in prices? Has it affected your shooting? And do you long to shoot more film, or what is your relationship therein?
Yeah. Well, one, my vision deteriorated in the past 2 years. So the 645, I took it out recently, and I never bring my glasses anywhere, my readers. This is old man talk now.
AARP in the house.
I couldn't see. I could not focus. And sure enough, they weren't focused. I was like, oh, yeah. But, you know, in the end, my relationship with it is, I am shooting less of it due to the prices for sure. But it's when I want to really, really slow down. If I feel like I'm stressed out and I've just been shooting a bunch of mindless digital images, like yesterday, I shot 1,200 exposures of these monsters, which was wonderful. But they're monster costumes, and I don't have to do any editing, which is wonderful. I just delivered the card, and there you go, monsters on green screen, 1,200 pictures. But that's clicking, and it was half on a tripod and half video, and I love the people that make those monsters. They always hire me, but now I want to take some. I have some film ready to put in a Mamiya. I was thinking about going this afternoon, actually.
Do you have a favorite film stock or a stock you're on a kick on lately?
No, I don't, honestly, I don't explore enough on films, but I've been to Delta 100 has been my go-to.
This guy is my brothers from a different mother.
It's
Deltas. Yeah. I'm a Delta guy. There's so many people who are HP and FP. I'm a Delta 100, 400 guy all day.
Yeah, it's sitting on top of the camera, so I just got to load it. And I have, I think, Portra 400 in the AE1, if I remember. And that one, I don't even remember. I put the film in like 3 months ago, and for whatever reason, I did a shoot, and I always tell myself, finish the roll. And I didn't finish it. And it's like, oh, we're done with the shoot. And then it sits there for a couple months. So
do you, see, for me, Delta is like, there's some mid-tonal stuff that I cannot get with digital. Like like Delta is just like, have all these shades of mid-tones that you can't get anywhere else and enjoy it. And that's just the way, it's just like, oh my gosh. And if I need to bump the contrast, I will. But like, I cannot. I have all these different, film emulations and this. And I just cannot reproduce it. The best way to get Delta is to go shoot Delta. It's amazing.
It's honest.
It's honest. It's so good.
Just do it.
Skin looks so amazing on it.
And the way when I'm purging my mind with a painting or whatever, or with film, it's the same as opposed to the monster photos, 1,200 exposures, which, you're not even really looking at a certain point. It's click, 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 especially with monsters because their face is always perfect. Costumes, the eyes are always going to look good.
You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
I've got a question for you, and I've been thinking about this the entire conversation, but I didn't know if it was appropriate to ask. How do you accomplish your painter work with the photographs? How the hell do you do that?
What do you mean? I guess.
Do you print out the photo in like a large format and then like paint over it, or?
Oh, okay.
Is it a digital rendering? Like, how do you?
Yeah, there's several methods, and I guess that's where I say, like when we started talking, that I merge all these ideas, and I'm always experimenting with process. So there's some that are, all digital creation. I did some work with Anya, and those are all digital. The painting is digital painting, and then I've done some where I print a small reference because I only have an 8.5 by 11 printer at home.
Right.
And then I paint, usually with the broadest brush I can do, so that things aren't overly prescriptive. And then sometimes I'll print some detail out, but there's different ways.
I was going to say
my answer is going to be different. I mean, I've printed, I've done Polaroids and I've drawn all over them. So I did a project in Washington State one time where I took Polaroids and just got blobs of blue paint and put them all over them. So yeah, my answer is sometimes.
I was going to say, because your work makes no sense and yet it's harmonious. It's like, I get it, but I don't know why I get it. You did one body of work. I believe it was with Anya and an extension cord. You brought an orange extension cord into the mix. And I'm thinking, because you did an outdoor and an indoor with that orange extension cord. And what I found really interesting is the color, the orange that went with the extension cord it also accentuated the other two main colors. Indoors, it was white and light brown, if I remember correctly, with the orange. And that, like, the orange was a fantastic accent there. It worked really well, not to mention how you composed it. The framing was great. And to me, I'm thinking, like, because I was starting out as a photographer when I saw this, and I'm just like, I was angry. I was a little bit upset. I was like, why is this extension cord doing so much in this photo? What the fuck?
I love that extension cord.
and then you shot another photo of Anya on this log outside with the I believe there was like a deep blue sky and then tall grass, dry grass, and it was such harsh light. It was a
10 a.m. if I recall right.
Wow, yeah.
In December, if I recall right.
Yeah,
also. And
just like in between the photo, you've got this extension cord just disrupting the horizon and the model, and I'm just like, it strikes again. How can you do this? It was bewildering.
I mean, I was having this conversation with a musician / artist, visual artist, the other day when I was trimming my boxwoods. And I'm serious. I am when I'm doing that type of yard work, it's very domestic. I'm just in a zone thinking about stuff like that. And like, I think probably that's where I was like, extension cord.
Well, speaking of musicians, so you paint and you do photography, but you're also a musician, right?
Yeah, sort of.
He's being very humble. He plays in a band and has records and videos and stuff. You're a musician.
Yeah.
You check that box.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I sometimes don't want to say I'm a photographer or a painter or anything.
You're a creator. You produce
definitions. I'm like get a little like I don't know.
It's
I'm kind of all over the place.
It's a pressure and a limit at the same time.
Yeah.
What do you?
I make music.
to you, what is the relationship between visual and music? Like it could be art, like it could be painting, it could be photography, but because to me, like music is like just a big part of my life as photography is. Like I come from a music background, I'm a musician, and so to you, how important is music in your life with visual arts?
I mean, it's and I'll keep throwing you off topic, but even when I read a book, it's like that's pushing me. I'll read like one page. It takes me forever to read a book because I'll read one page, then I'm like, oh, I got to sketch something. With music, it's the same way. You'll have some vibe that isn't in your body or that connects to something in your body, and then you feel something, and that makes you want to do something. So, when you're listening to bebop music, you really want to paint like the 50s and get wild with it. And then when I was shooting with Misha, you've worked with her.
Yes, she's awesome.
Yeah, we listened to all French music. So it was all.
It had that vibe on the shoot. Yeah,
and this
her hair was very French.
This is also what people get when they ask me to put on the music. When I ask them, I'm like, okay, you're going to get this. So La Femme, it is.
La Femme d'Argent by Air. Is that who it was?
The rich woman.
The band. La Femme.
Okay.
Yeah, recommend them. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely puts a vibe and a feel, and that helps. That helps with you not having to over direct also. Like
that might be a litmus test with me. Models who let me pick the music tends to be models that are fucking cool to work with.
I think so.
So because they're usually like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to listen to. Right. I'm like, okay, cool. I got some slow dive going. Like, you're good with that? I'm like, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
I had a model one time. It was a 3-hour shoot. She's fantastic, absolutely phenomenal what she's doing. But she chose the music and it was all Latin pop. I actually, like, after the first hour, I developed a fucking like above the eye headache where I was just like, I can't fucking do this anymore.
You started building a wall.
I just like, fucking stop. Like, first of all, I don't listen to music with lyrics, I don't get into the flow with lyrics. And then second of all, like, this is the most like the poppiest of pop, like 16-year-old
Ricky Martin type stuff.
Worse than that, like boy band, Latin boy band style stuff. It was
oh dear.
Yeah, and
turn them on to some Juana Molina.
Oh well, that's the thing is I hinted. I was just like, they asked, they were polite. They're like, how, what do you think of the music? And I'm like, I prefer stuff without lyrics. And they're just like, oh, but all my stuff has lyrics in it. And I'm just like, astute. That's
good.
And then that's
your own music.
Yeah,
that's
and
good.
She didn't think that I was gonna like contradict her music, and she was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep posing, and we'll just continue with the shoot. I'm just like, I wish I had Advil. Yeah.
Do I look like I listen to Latin boy bands?
Did the photos look like a headache?
No, thank goodness. The photos actually came out, but I was just
So it depends on the shoot. Like if it's a commercial shoot, like where this is clearly not going in the portfolio, I'm just like, you choose the music, you get into whatever groove you need to get into. If it's smiles and happiness and stuff like that, like whatever. But if it's like something for my portfolio and I need to get myself into a mindset for it, sometimes I'll be a little bit more, hey, I've got a playlist. Like I need to control what's going on here. And I think that's important. Like it's like I'm gonna throw on like exit music for a film by Radiohead, and you're gonna create that vibe right here. Have fun.
Fatboy Slim's entire discography.
Right about now, the funk soul brother.
Yeah.
That's the one who goes, where he's like, should.
Yeah. It's either that or I'll put on the Doors if it's a model that openly talks about like their mental health. I'll just be like, all right, so we're gonna put on the Doors and we're gonna listen to the Doors and then we're gonna listen to Five Finger Death Punch. How about that?
Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh man, a friend of mine put that secretly on my playlist, and I would be painting, and like I have my painting playlist takes me in a zone, and I feel like I'm on a ride, and then the Five Finger Death Punch would come on. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I would get really pissed off. And sometimes I can't I'm working, so I can't turn it off. And then I go back, and finally he admitted that he had done that. So I was like, where did this come from?
Disruption.
How'd this get my playlist? It does not belong here.
Yeah, I put Meshuggah in people's playlists before just to fuck with them back in the day when you used to still make CDs and stuff. You know, it's like just dropped it in there.
It's a horrible thing to do to somebody.
Like listening to Secret Agent Man, and then Meshuggah comes in.
I was mad. I was alone and mad.
So where do you? This is. I'm sure you can answer this in 5 seconds or less. Where do you draw your artistic inspiration from to shoot? That could be an entire episode.
Yeah. I could answer really obnoxiously everywhere.
Correct.
The boxwoods are an inspiration. I've drawn the boxwoods, and I've had a model pose with the boxwoods. So there's one. Things in the yard, things directly in my experience, of course, compost, mushrooms, decomposition, and these things. I start like,
that gets you going, huh? It suddenly like unlocks when I walk by a concrete building, a new concrete building, I get extremely just
brutalist.
I'm just like, oh,
It's a box. It's gray.
That's solid.
you start touching it, you're like, I think that's 3,000 psi concrete right there. That's pretty good.
It looks like some people have stood in a line to get bread in front of this building. Oh, I'm getting off.
Yeah. They call that deficit in Russian. So
I have to remember that one. Yeah, I went to an art opening on Saturday night. Local painter Patrick Puckett, and his work's kind of very David Hockney. And I just, I was marveling at how he got this thick paint to work, and how he can make it something so simple look so interesting. So, that just kicks in my mind. Even if it's for photography, it's all working in there. Other places of inspiration, just getting out. Music. And I find like musicians are probably the most fun to shoot also. They have the most open mind. So if I want to, make the zoom and mess up the focus, they're like, great.
I mean, I'm so comfortable shooting musicians, being a musician myself. Yeah. I know exactly what they're talking about. Like, oh, cool. Yeah. So those 6L6 tubes in the back of that head, you got them like on a hook at that point. They're like, oh, they love talking about their gear, and then they relax. Because, the problem, I find the problem with a lot of musicians, they want to look more badass than they actually are.
That's true.
And,
no comment on that.
Yeah, but, so you got to get them to look like a model in the sense that you need them to look comfortable and in a natural. Because to me, that's what I'm going for when I'm shooting models. Like, how can I just get them to look like they're doing something super benign, but telling a story or whatever, like they make them not look like they're being posed. And so with musicians, I just start talking to equipment and like, oh, cool, you got a fuzz face, that's a cool pedal, man. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix would like rock that out, and then they just like open up, and at that point you have the ice broken, and such low hanging fruit for me.
If you take them someplace stinky, also that helps. The spot we went to smelled like straight up urine on Friday night, and everyone in the band was covering their noses and gasping, and one guy's like, I think I'm going to quit. So those photos were really fun because they were all gasping, and I'm like, okay, don't hold your breath. They just really loosened up from all that, and actually some of them turned out to be really good.
What is it about shitty places that make great photos? Seriously, like I've
texture,
like I've seen a model that Raphael's worked with, that I work with, named Malika. There's this really cool shoot he did of her where she's like kicking rocks around in this fucking weathered place, and a trench coat. I always liked that shoot. I thought that shoot was badass. But I'm like that. I like taking like really beautiful models and putting them in really shitty places. Although I had one model reach out to me, I didn't know she was underage. I mean, not underage, like under 18, but like under 21. Like I fucking won't work with somebody who's that underage. I'm like, no, I'm good. Unless it's an agency model, agency sending me someone to build a portfolio and the parents there. But I didn't know she was under 21. She's like, I want to go. I'm not going to name the name of the bar because she wanted to go to a bar to
take me something.
She wanted no. There was none of that going on. She wanted to take a picture of herself like in the shittiest bathroom in Austin, like doing her makeup or something. And so I had this 7.5 millimeter fisheye, and I just like put it up there, and I just had it just on an interval timer. because I was like, I don't want to be in a bathroom, like that's. Wow. But when we got to the door, she like pulled out a fake ID. I'm like, oh fuck, like okay, she's that young, but and she's like, I want a picture of holding a cigarette, and she can't buy cigarettes because you have to be 21. I'm like, oh fuck, okay, but anyway, back to the point though. It's
it's like a wabi sabi thing too. It's like especially if it's like some perfect model, that the texture of a gross place or a less desirable place is interesting. There's some history too that I can feel or sense, hard in Austin to do that. But I find myself not wanting to go to 2nd Street at all unless someone is paying me a lot of money.
2nd Street is where I go for commercial shoots. It's perfect for that.
Exactly, yeah, or the Domain. but
you'll get kicked out of the Domain if you shoot there. Like I actually will
I
show
don't
up.
go there. I don't know anything about the Domain actually, so
it's too clean.
It doesn't exist in my world.
Yeah.
I get asked to go there a lot. When I do, I have to take one of my smaller Fuji cameras with me that doesn't look professional because the second they see a Canon with a red ring on it, like they're like, you need a permit to shoot here. I'm like, how do I get a permit? Oh, you have to go to our website. There's like nowhere on the website. They're basically saying don't shoot here.
It was years ago though. That I did go there. There was like a hair salon that I was doing a shoot for, and they wanted me to take their models out around, and we ended up in the parking garage, and like one of the security guys was on one of those, what do you call the? Segways, yeah. And he was going up this ramp to bust us, and he stopped on the ramp, told us to stop shooting. So we're like, okay. And then he couldn't get the thing up the ramp then. So it was kind of funny. It's kind of like a mall cop moment. And
I did a shoot with Malika at the Domain once. Yeah. I had a makeup artist. We were at the top of a parking garage. Very, very original idea. It's like a milk bath with flowers in it. But anyway... Not original at all for those of you who don't know anything about photography, but we're at the top of a parking garage. I was shooting some looks, and it's a residential like top floor. Like the parking is all for residential, but we started shooting there, and we saw like first of all the security comes by and they're like stop, and I'm like okay, and we just ignore him. And then the cops came, and I could see you can see the cars wrapping around the garage coming up, and I saw a cop car, and I was like. I have 6 shots and then we're folding tent and leaving. So I blasted off the last 6 shots and then got my modifier all broken down, my softbox and my stand. And we're literally 1 foot down the stairs. And the cop gets out. I was like, stop. Like, you can't shoot here. And I was like, cool, we're just leaving. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But, it's like, I guess that's a subject to talk about. How much do you push the envelope with getting yelled at places?
How much do I push the envelope?
Yeah, because if you see a shot and you're like, I want that shot, I know that's private property. What do I do?
So I was asked to trespass on Friday for the band shoot, and I was very hesitant because I got asked on Thursday night because I went to a show, and then they're asking, can you shoot Friday? So I was like, wow, okay. He had scoped out all the locations, and so he's texting me that he's like, well, one of them would require trespassing. Do you want to do that? And I'm thinking, well, I don't think I've charged enough to trespass. So, I was not excited about that. And it turned out there were people at the location when we got there that let us in. And the building was super rickety. And he just told us flat out, don't touch anything. And if something happens in there, just remember you're trespassing. So it's we just laughed. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I would not have trespassed for that. But you're saying for a shot that I really wanted, that would definitely require a lot of comfort that I feel like I would have to, if I'm going to get some model in trouble for something, I don't really want to do that. I've seen a shot that would be a little dangerous too, that would be effing fantastic with the brutalist look.
You can say fucking on here.
Okay. Okay. You can beep it?
No. Fuck. We just say fuck, cock balls on Will Ferrell on Old School.
Yeah, I've seen this and I'm like, a model could go out on this thing, this structure, and get out there, and it'd be so good.
I find with age, I'm less risky as I get older. When I was younger, I'd be like, yeah. So I had this model that I'm not going to name names, obviously, because we don't like her.
Yep.
He knows what I'm talking about. There's this model who
Mouth it.
Yeah, there's this model who decided that she wanted to go out on these abandoned railroad tracks, which I'm okay shooting on abandoned railroad tracks, as cliche as railroad tracks are. I was like, yeah, I'll shoot on abandoned railroad tracks. I'm not going to shoot on active railroad tracks. Right. But she went on these abandoned railroad tracks, and there was a bridge that goes over a river. It was like an 80-foot drop. There's a 2.5-foot gap between each railroad tie, and I have a 40-pound backpack on with a brand new camera that I just got, a Fuji X-H2. I was just starting to shoot on, and I was like learning the camera, and I'm just like, the railroad ties were starting to weather because I have a 40-pound. I'm 200 pounds, roughly 195, and then I have a pack on me. I'm about 250. She's like probably 95 pounds wet, and I'm like, yeah, you're on the tracks doing fine, but like every time I take a step and I look down at this river, I'm like, nah, man, I'm not. I was like, look, I have a telephoto lens. If you want to like walk out all the way onto the bridge, I'm happy to throw this motherfucker out to 200 millimeters and get your shots you want. And she just like got all pissy about it or whatever. And I was just like, whatever. Like that's where I found out that like, okay, I will say no.
Yeah.
I mean, no one should take your risk, with a cavalier attitude, and I shouldn't take anyone else's risk, so.
It was a TFP shoot too. I'm like, you're not even paying me to do this. Fuck that.
Yeah. Right. This last weekend, I was asked to trespass into Commodore Perry's at a very early time, and totally for TFP, and it's Commodore Perry's. It's not a location I'd shoot. It's just very regal lawns and stuff like that.
For those listening, what is Commodore Perry's?
Commodore Perry's is a very wealthy, like, hotel/resort in the middle of Hyde Park, where you have dinner parties, you have like reservations, people stay there and have like big meetings, and it's just it's like the Austin, Texas version of Martha's Vineyard. It's just a very luxury event space that people go to for a number of things, weddings specifically. And so I was asked to trespass on this space early in the morning. And this person also said that there was a wedding that day. So I said, like, maybe we do it in the afternoon because, like, the risk of getting kicked out for waking up at 6:30 in the morning is too high, and I'm not getting paid to do this. This makes absolutely no sense. Plus, the location is absolute shite. If you want to get pictures of a nice, well-kept lawn with some nice flowers, there's a lot of other places to do that in Austin and accomplish it, especially if you're shooting at 50 millimeters. You're not going to see shit, you're not going to see anything. So I declined a couple days before, and they said, okay, I would really like to get the shot. I'm just like, well, I've given several locations that we could shoot that would be more, better and appropriate. And I'm not into trespassing. And, I ended up getting chewed out for that, the day of the shoot later in the afternoon. And it's just, it was out of order. The person asking me to shoot this was older than me, and so
for a TFP,
and it's just like the risk reward is so fucking low, or so high rather. That it's like, why even bother doing that? It's like you can shoot that anywhere.
Do they have peacocks?
Not even peacocks.
Yeah.
Not even peacocks.
If there are no peacocks, I'm out.
Yeah.
Real peacocks with their weird
peacock
sounds.
Yeah, I'll take a risk for, like, I'll shoot an underpass. I'll there's an abandoned school that Kevin and I have both shot at. I'll shoot there because I know the place. I've been there. I've done the risk assessment by myself. Right. No cops go there. Like, that's fine. But going to a place where there's active fucking foot traffic and people spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to be there, to risk taking shots that aren't going to impress anybody. Why?
It has to be the shot.
Yeah.
The TFP person's not going to pay your fine.
No. And plus, I vocalized to them. I said to them, I was just like, I've gotten my SD card wiped by locational security before they let us leave. And
that's why you have a camera with 2 SD cards.
The one on the backside.
Yeah, well, and you have like the CF, you have the CF Express, and then the SD card, because they won't know. They're like, well, I don't know what this big chunky thing is. Like, that's the CF Express. That's the one I care about.
That's my SSD. Yeah,
yeah, that's just like it's an ND filter, bro.
You are listening to the F11 Photography Podcast.
What does it mean to be published? Because I see these people on Instagram that say, and I just roll over and laugh. What was that? Uh-oh, somebody dropped something. All right. They say, I am multi-internationally published. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Well, words and their meanings change. And, what it meant to be internationally published when I was a kid, I think it meant something. You had a magazine that was printed, and you had a gatekeeper that said, this is good enough.
Now we
to
have
be printed.
Now we have vanity magazines, where the only people who actually buy the printed copies are the photographers, the makeup artists, the models, and very small. Like you, and then they have like these very clever fonts that look like Vogue, but they name the magazines Vigor or Intra or Movir or Malvi.
Movir.
Yeah, and they have all these different.
A French magazine.
A French magazine. I'm going to tell you where it's from. And it's like, but then like the people like being published, like to me, like I just don't even like that word anymore. Like I don't like saying I've been published because you can embarrass yourself pretty quickly if like people who know what's up look at it and just like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have said that.
It depends. The first magazine I ever submitted to, and this wasn't intentional, it was Mob Journal's Boys, Boys, Boys magazine. And I later found out that this magazine is in almost every gay shop across the country, especially in LA and here in Austin. And I took a photo, an impromptu shoot of my younger brother in some thrifted outfits. I got the shoots submitted the shoots an hour before the deadline of the actual fucking like submission for the magazine. Ended up making front cover. And it was my younger brother who's not even a model. He's just gay. So, and so that was one of the rare occasions where like that magazine on KVAR was actually like a printed and purchased magazine in LA and Austin.
Very rare. Very rare for KVAR.
I'm sure there are some on there. I had a model that wanted me to submit to Artellus last month. So I did that one. And of course they want me to buy an issue if I'd like to see the tear sheets. I mean, they're going to give the tear sheets in a month.
Yeah.
But I just wait for the
laugh. I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying this. No. Like, are you kidding me?
I mean, here's the thing. I will say, if you are up and coming, like, you're just learning, Brandon and I talk about all the time, you should print your work. And I will say that the quality of the paper and the print on those magazines is pretty similar to what you get with Vogue or Elle or one of those magazines, but
I've never seen one in real life.
They're good. They're good. Like if you want to see your work printed and you're not going to do anything else with it, like to get 8 pages, whatever. If you want to spend $40 on a magazine, you go out and you buy 4 or 5 8x10s. It's about the same. You're just seeing it in magazine type quality. So I could see an argument for that. That's not the point. The point is don't tell everybody you're published. Because you're not. Like I don't even consider Photo Vogue to be published. Like I think that the quality of work on Photo Vogue is good. I think that the stuff that they select is awesome. But they're literally just giving you a badge that you put on your image.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like I've never submitted to it, but I've seen the quality. I mean, you've been in Photo Vogue before, which is a subsidiary of Vogue Italia. So, but yeah, like I just. You're like, I'm in Vogue, and they tag Vogue, and you're like, don't do that. Like, you're not even like, no, you're not in Vogue. First of all, Vogue doesn't do editorials. They do advertorials. Louis Vuitton pays Vogue for pages, and then they go, we want the Queen of England and Louis Vuitton, and we want Annie fucking Leibovitz to be the fucking photographer. That's published in Vogue, and you, unless you're doing that, you're not published.
I don't even know how you would,
people have to die.
You have to have an agent or something. I don't have.
Yeah, people have
connections.
I find
real publications I've had were connections that I don't know.
Well, I kind of find that these magazines. I find that if you want to get into Vogue, it's so in Hollywood. For me, like John Williams, Hans Zimmer, and like Danny Elfman, like score like 75% of the movies in Hollywood. It seems like. It's a very exclusive and small club. Yeah. It's the same thing for shooting for Vogue. Like pretty much every other cover for Vogue is shot by Annie Leibovitz. And until she passes on to the next plane, it's going to be that way for a while. And there's about 6 people waiting in the wings to take her spot who are very high profile. So the point of this whole thing is you weren't published.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And
we're not Annie Leibovitz.
Yeah. And saying that you are published, it only works with the crowd that buys into the same mentality you do. Yep.
Yes. So with that, we'll call it an episode. I want to thank Raphael for stopping in the studio today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You can follow this podcast at f11pod.com. You can follow us on all the social media platforms at F11pod. And don't forget to get your 10% off of Dehancer, which is an awesome program. We have a link in the description below where you can check that out. And kids, until next time, chase light, not algorithms.
Thank you for listening to today's episode.
For more information about this podcast, go to www.f11pod.com.